24 kids under the age of 18 were shot and killed in 2023. 3 of these killings happened on April 28, 2023. The lives of 10 families would change forever. 5 people from Uptown, HopOutBlick or Kazir Reeves, Khalif Fresgy or Leafy, Taj Lennon and Tyree Lennon or F.A., who are cousins, and B.D. or Kevin Yip. All are accused of attending a meetup to sell guns to some kids from North Philly. Those kids were La or Salah Fleming, who was 14, Leaky or Malik Ballard, who was 17, along with 3 other people who I can't name at this time. Initials JB, AW, and RB. Tragedy struck that day as the gun sale turned into scenes that looked like gunfights at the OK Corral. Eventually, in the fall last year, authorities had F.A. or Tyree Lennon and HopOutBlick in custody. Authorities would bide their time taking this to trial, asking for continuance after continuance, as it seems they're having trouble trying to piece together a puzzle that would lead to convictions. And as to what exactly happened that day, they of course have their theories, and that will come out in trial. But on Tuesday, May 21st, 2024, HopOutBlick and F.A. had their preliminary hearings. The purpose of a preliminary hearing is for the prosecutors to convince the judge that there is enough evidence to bring the case to trial. To do this, the prosecutors start by showing the video of the events that day. The video starts by allegedly showing Blick's crew arriving 5 deep in a gray Jeep Cherokee. They pull into the driveway behind the house. The prosecutors claim that the person we see climbing on top of the roof of the car to jump the gate was Taj Lennon. Taj hops the gate to get into the house. He enters to the basement. Then we see the video of a black SUV arriving with the group from North Philly. Prosecutors curiously chose to play the video initially without sound, and the reason would come out during cross-examination of homicide detective Robert Bailey, and we'll get to that later. Allie Rushing of the Philadelphia Inquirer wrote an article about the preliminary hearing, and here were some of her observations. The killings were a result of a gun swap gone wrong, Assistant District Attorney Sidney Pope said. On the afternoon of April 28, 2023, a group of young men from North Philadelphia were meeting at a house in Longcrest with a crew from Germantown. The plan was that both sides would bring guns and swap them, Pope said, a common practice among people involved in crime to get rid of, quote, dirty firearms that they had been used in shootings. The Germantown crew, though, intended to rob the other side of their weapons and cash, Pope said, but something went wrong and shots rang out from both sides. The 3 teens were killed and a 16-year-old was injured in the gunfire. During a preliminary hearing Tuesday, Prosecutor Pope, using surveillance video, social media posts, rap song lyrics, and jailhouse phone calls, laid out Reeves and Lennon's alleged roles in the killings. It was the most detailed look yet at the incident in which more juveniles were shot and killed than any other last year. This murder is a part of a long history of PMB members committing crimes for clout, for their own work product and rap songs, Pope said. But questions in the case remain Tuesday, including what sparked the first bout of gunfire and who fired the guns. Evidence suggests Fresgy fired the first shot, Pope said, striking the 16-year-old. In response, she said Fleming shot Fresgy. It's not yet clear, she said, who fired the shots that killed Fleming and Ballard. At the hearing, all of this was laid out by Detective Robert Bailey. During cross-examination of the detective, Blick's lawyer, Ellis Palavides, asked Prosecutor Pope why she played the initial video with the sound off. She said, quote, that's how she usually likes to do it. He then gets her to play the video with sound and focuses in on the few seconds between when gunshots are heard and when the first person runs out the back of the house. He makes the assertion, or at least alludes to it, when asking the detective how far are the basement steps from the front of the house. He alludes to this point out of the fact that Salah Fleming was found in the threshold of the front door and Khalif was found on the porch. Malik Ballard was found on the sidewalk. Lawyers rarely will lay out their whole defense nor argue facts during the preliminary. The burden of proof is on the prosecutors. Blick's lawyers successfully point out a few flaws in the state's case against Blick in particular. F.A. has a much further chance of beating these charges, as the prosecution provides a lot more tangible evidence against him. More on that in a bit. Blick's lawyer gets Sidney Pope to play the video again, and once again she does, this time with sound. Why would she play the video with no audio the first time is my question, and is astounding, and I'm glad Blick's lawyer didn't let her get away with it. What the state is trying to prove is that Blick acted in concert with the robbery that either directly or indirectly led to the deaths of Salah Fleming and Malik Ballard. In Pennsylvania, when you are charged with murder, that charge includes all counts of murder, meaning if he meets the criteria for any degree of murder beyond a reasonable doubt, he shall be convicted. What the state and prosecution is going for is probably the second degree murder, which is defined as a criminal homicide constitutes murder of the second degree when it is committed while the defendant was engaged as a principal or an accomplice in the perpetration of a felony. In this case, the felony would be the robbery, which the state has to first prove was the motive. When Pope played the tape, this time with sound, the camera's point of view is from the alleyway facing the back of the property, but kind of far away and not the clearest visuals. For instance, you couldn't make out any faces in the video, and the prosecution says that one of the peoples from Blick's crew changes hoodies in the act. You hear maybe a dozen or so gunshots, then literally 3 seconds later, you see a person who the state says is Blick run out the back of the house. The lawyer was laying the groundwork for the trial to be dismissed due to lack of evidence. He argued the distance from the front of the house where the bodies were found and the basement door are too far apart for what the camera shows and what the state is claiming. At least that's what he could have done if he weren't trying to possibly argue that Blick wasn't there. Instead, he points to the discrepancies and rests his case. The defense's full strategy will play out at trial. The prelims, like I said, aren't made for arguing the fact. It's for the state to present their evidence and theory, or at least enough of their evidence to convince the judge that this is worth taking the trial. By no means do either side play all their cards, but in the end, it seemed enough as Blick and FA were held over for trial. The prosecution said the house where the shooting unfolded belonged to Tyree Lennon, or FA. According to detectives, they moved out a few days earlier, or maybe a week earlier, per the landlord. That's why the tape shows allegedly them climbing the fence and accessing the basement. The surveillance videos that police said showed Lennon and Reeves at the scene were grainy, something from a far distance, something the defense attorney said were problematic, as I just mentioned earlier. I was surprised by how little evidence they put on in this prelim, said Ella Alavides, Reeves' lawyer. How they ID'd those grainy videos is beyond me, he said. The home where the shooting unfolded, Pope said, was Tyree Lennon's, as I said earlier. An Instagram message with a friend the night before the shooting showed how he planned the robbery, she said. I was trying to see if he wanted to make some bread, Lennon told a friend. He went on to say he had a lick for someone trying to buy a gat. Then, in a video call just days later with a friend in jail, Sidney Pope said Lennon alluded to being involved when the friend asked him why he had cut his hair. FA, or Lennon, said, quote, "You know why." The friend also told Lennon he had seen him on the news. Paul DeMaio, Lennon's attorney, said that it demonstrated only that the friend had watched the news and had seen Lennon's mugshot, not anything beyond that. Alavides and DeMaio said none of the evidence definitively placed their clients at the house or inside the room of the shooting. They said they would file motions to dismiss the case, read the article. And I want everyone to listen very closely to what happened next. A CIU expert was brought in and said his sole job is to follow social media accounts of these guys who are part of these groups. He said he specializes in the northwest part of the city, so uptown basically. He also said he has been watching the PNB guys for a long time, 3 years, including HopOutBlick. He said he can identify all the members by the fact that he has viewed dozens of music videos and hundreds of Instagram videos and posts. He also mentioned none other than Mr. Disrespectful, which drew a noticeable reaction of surprise from Blick in the courtroom. The CIU expert witness that will be used in this case said that he could positively identify Kaiser Reeves or HopOutBlick in the grainy video on the day of the shooting, despite never having any real-life interactions with him or anybody from PNB for that matter. Blick's lawyer argued that this was insufficient. This expert also identified Khalif Fresdi as part of PNB, which as far as I know is a tenuous claim. Someone can fact check me on that in the comments. Another amazing moment at court was a taped recording of a phone call between Curry, who's in jail, and I'm assuming it was his calls being recorded. But it was the day of Khalif Fresdi's funeral. A call between FA and Curry took place. They were doing a FaceTime call, and Curry asked to speak to Blick. FA says that Blick's in the other car, and that, quote, "He's not fucking with us no more. He's a rat. He's a bitch." Now this was probably emotions going awry from FA as the two sat next to each other in court, and if Blick was ratting, this almost certainly would not be the case. As far as I know, this is 100% false. Seriously, this was played in court and neither one of them reacted at all. Blick sat emotionally and FA, who was animated most of the hearing, listened in silence. Another interesting thing that happened was the only evidence they had against Blick is circumstantial. According to egattorneys.com, most criminal convictions are based solely on circumstantial evidence. However, circumstantial evidence is not as reliable as direct evidence and requires jurors to draw conclusions. Circumstantial evidence can also be less persuasive than direct evidence and can lead to errors if misinterpreted. There are limitations to how circumstantial evidence can be used. A prosecutor must still prove every element of the offense beyond a reasonable doubt before the jury can convict someone solely based on circumstantial evidence. The prosecutor must convince the jury that the only reasonable conclusion that can be drawn from the circumstantial evidence is that the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Very, very important. This can be difficult, especially in situations where the circumstantial evidence may point to other possibility or reasonable explanation. Having a knowledgeable and experienced criminal defense attorney can be crucial when the prosecution is attempting to prove a case solely based on circumstantial evidence. This is exactly the situation Blick finds himself in. No gun or ballistics link him to the crime. His biggest piece of circumstantial evidence he's going to have to overcome is that CIU expert and his lyrics. His lyrics, as I've said before, are going to be very problematic for him in this case. Sidney Pope said HopOutBlick rapped about the shooting afterwards and played a song in which he and Taj Lennon, known as Baby Stu, talked about stealing Fleming's gun from the scene.
He never pick. Forever been a dub cause I can't get my brother back. Salah died with his gun, we took his cousin get. Leaky died cause he was there, that got his melon curt. Free Lil Sai played the field like he a running back. Salah felt it in his chest and he start spitting up. And Leaky got left on the sidewalk, he ain't getting up. We got two new Vicks, we call him double L for lying Leaky. Nigga, we throw L's down for them and L's up for Leafy. Salah should've shot his gun, but he ain't get to squeeze it. And Leaky just was in the way, so they had left him leaking. We said the new chair was gonna tell cause he was fucking.
When the song was played in court Tuesday, FA appeared to sing along, according to the article. I'm gonna leave it there for now. Thanks for watching American Confidential, and until next time, be safe.
On a nigga and he was no more good. They put a warrant out for murders, I'm still in the hood. They thought that we was locked in, but they misunderstood. If only I still had my twin, this should've all be good. If you gon' tell when you get booked, then don't be in this shit. They tryna lock me for them bees, whole time I'm innocent.